All right. So we just finished the section where he said, I forgot your arms, a huge human foot. So this section you can watch on Tuesday for your live session credit. But we're going to continue the story. So we know he got him down into the catacombs and um, we know that Fortunato really, really wants to be the one to discover and find out, yes, is this the Amontillado? Is this the wine that you're talking about? And he's like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm just really not sure. I don't want you to get sick. Montressor keeps talking to him and asking him, "Are you sure you want to come down? Are you sure you have this cough?" But Fortunato is just set on being the one to go and figure out if this is this fine wine, right? So I'm gonna skip back to the classroom for a second because I somehow forgot a slide. So I'm gonna pause it. Okay, and we'll pick up here and then I'll go back to the PowerPoint in a second. But he said, I forgot your arms, and then his response was a huge human foot, Dior, in a field of azure. The foot crushes the serpent rampant whose fangs are embedded in the heel. And then he says, and the motto? Nemo me impune liciste. Good, he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes as the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Medoc. We had passed through the walls of piled bones and casks and puncheons, intermingling into the innermost recess of the catacombs. I paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by the arm above the elbow. The nitre, I said. See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed, the drops of moisture trickling among the bones. Come, we will go back ere it's too late. Your cough. It's nothing, he said. Let us go on. But first, another draught of the Medoc. I broke and reached him a flagon of De Grave. He emptied it with he emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upward with a gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement, a grotesque one. You do not comprehend, he said. Not I, replied. Then you are not of the Brotherhood. How? You are not of the Masons? Yes, I said. Yes. You, impossible, a Mason? A Mason, I replied. A sign, he said. It is this, I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the folds of my reloquer. You jest, he exclaimed, recoiling a few paces. But let us proceed to the Amontillado. Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath my cloak and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arched descendants, passed on and descending again, arriving at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our flambeau rather to glow than flame. At the most remote end of the crypt there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains piled to the vault overhead, in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. All right, sorry, we're going to pick back up on the PowerPoint because this is when it comes back in. So we're catacombs of Paris. Three sides of the interior crypt. One second. Three sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the fourth, the bones had been thrown down and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the wall thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior recess, in the depth of about 4 feet, in width 3, in height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no especial use in itself, but formed merely the interval between two of the colossal supports of the roof in the catacombs, and was backed by one of the circumscribing walls of solid granite. It was in vain Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depths of the recess. Its termination, its termination the feeble light did not enable us to see. "Proceed," I said. "Herein is the Amontillado." As for Luchesi, so look at the question, what is the mood like in this part of the story and why? So if we look at some of the wording, deep crypt, foulness of the air, the flambeau, which is their torch, it started to glow rather than flames. Kind of creepy, right? Just a little creepy. And then down here, when it's talking about what the catacombs at this point are made of, they're made of human remains and bones. So there's like three sides. There's like two sides, and then there's the back wall that's made of granite. But the front looks like it was taken, like all the bones were taken out in a pile and laid over to the side. So we're trying to figure out why. So they get over there, and Fortunato's like looking in, and he's like, "What is that?" He's kind of curious, and Montresor's like, "That's where the wine is. Go take a look." And so he's trying to talk him into going into that little area that's there. So let's see what else happens. Hold on one second. "He is an ignoramus," interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more, and I had fettered him to the granite. In its surface were two iron staples, distant from each other about 2 feet horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. "Pass your hand," I said, "over the wall. You cannot help feeling the niter. Indeed, it's very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return." "No? Then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power." "The Amontillado?" ejaculated my friend, not yet recovering from his astonishment. "True," I replied, "the Amontillado." As I have said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I have before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials and the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. So, if you haven't picked up on it yet, he tricks Fortunato into going into the little hole or the little area. He chains him to the wall because he's so intoxicated. He doesn't really know what's going on. And he chains him to the wall, and now he's starting to brick the wall back up. I had scarcely laid the first tier of my masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low moaning cry from the deep of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was the long and obstinate silence. I had laid the second tier, and the third, and the fourth, and then I heard a furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to it with more satisfaction, I ceased my labors, and I sat down upon the bones. When at last the clinking subsided, I resumed the trowel, and I finished without interruption the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh tier. The wall was now nearly upon a level with my breast. I again paused, withholding the flambeau over the mason work, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams, bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form, seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled, unsheathed my rapier, I began to grope with it about the recess, but the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I reapplied I replied to the yells who of him who clamored. I re-echoed, I aided, I surpassed them with volume and in strength. I did this and the clamoring grew still. It was now midnight and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the ninth, the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be lifted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position, but now there came from the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as the noble Fortunato. So here it's asking you, what does the word Fortunato remind you of? So obviously we might think of the word fortunate. And so how is that ironic? He's not really fortunate right now, right? He's stuck in this catacomb chained and he's bricking up the wall and pretty much he's getting ready to put the last brick in, right? So not so fortunate. So he was screaming and he was shaking the chains and then all of a sudden he didn't hear anything and then Montresor decides, I'm going to scream too. And he screams so loud and it's kind of his way of replying and getting back to Fortunato, right? A very good joke indeed. An excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. Over our wine. The Amontillado, I said. Yeah, the Amontillado. But it's not going. But is it not getting late? Will not they be awaiting us at the palazzo? The Lady Fortunato and the rest. Let us be gone. Yes, I said, let us be gone. For the love of God, Montresor. Yes, I said, for the love of God. But these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud. Fortunato! No answer. I called again. Fortunato! No answer. Still. I thrust a torch through the remaining appenditure and let it fall within there. There came forth in return only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Again, the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of the bones. For the half of the century, no mortal has disturbed them. So, in the end, he got his revenge. Montresor got his revenge. He buried Fortunato alive in the wall of his catacombs, right, where no one will ever be able to hear him scream. So that is the Cask of Amontillado. So the next thing you're going to do is on Wednesday, you are going to be looking at the assignment that will be due for this, and it's a worksheet. So your next video will have to do with that. So hopefully you enjoyed the story, and if you have any questions, please let me know, and you can send me an email.